first of all, I don't know who you are. Second of all, you don't have what it takes to do this. Third, you're crazy.
Are you ready? All right, let's go.
Manufacturing is sexy. Sounds crazy? Just wait. I'm Z Holly, host of The Art of Manufacturing. Your behind-the-scenes look at how people who make stuff are trying to make it in their industries. If you've ever wondered how to build a brand, a business, or just a better mousetrap, tune in and enjoy. This week, we're talking with Sonja Rasula, the founder and CEO of the Unique Empire. In 2008, she risked her entire 401k to start Unique LA, a pop-up marketplace that features over 300 independent artists and designers. Back then, the idea was totally uncharted territory. Since then, her ambitions have expanded to an annual entrepreneurship conference, a co-working space in downtown LA, and an agency to work with brands to develop content and social strategy. Over the years, she's worked with thousands of makers and entrepreneurs, so I was curious if she had tips for brands and manufacturers on how to use social media and technology to better connect with their customers, and what not to do. We talk about the future of retail, and she shares a story of starting Unique LA when everyone thought she was crazy. And she also cracks the lid on 2 big new projects she has cooking that she hasn't even announced yet. We hear about that and a whole lot more on this week's episode of The Art of Manufacturing.
Unique LA is a pop-up marketplace, and it's very large scale. When most people think pop-up, I think they think about like a store in the middle of nowhere where there's wine served and it's like a sale for the night. So Unique LA takes place over a weekend. We've got 350 vendors selling, and we take over a space that's 90,000 square feet, which is the size of a trade show, of a convention center, essentially. And the purpose for me was, this is kind of funny for me to say, but I had been let go from my dream job. And so I was in search mode, which I know everyone listening can probably relate to when you're like, I want to be doing something more meaningful with my life, but I don't know what that is. And that came to me while I was sitting in traffic in LA, of course. So I was in my car sitting, and I was running around the city trying to buy presents for my best friend. And I knew that I couldn't buy them all from one store because I had wanted to get something from Abbot Kinney, which is a neighborhood by the beach. And then I wanted to get a food item from another store all the way across the city in Eagle Rock.
Oh my God, I want you as my friend. If you would do that for your friend, that's amazing.
Yes. So I wanted to give her a great birthday present. And the thing is, sitting in your car for the whole day trying to go across the city and back is it's like mind-numbing, and it's frustrating. And I thought to myself, why isn't there a large-scale event where people could come spend the day and do all their shopping in one stop? It made sense to me at the time. I started to tell this idea to other people, and they all thought I was crazy because it was 2008, which is one of the worst economies my generation has ever seen. And the other strange thing about this idea was that I wanted to create this large-scale pop-up, and I wanted to charge people an entrance fee. And that was also very, very unheard of, and it made people nervous, a.k.a. my mom. But I did it, and from day one, it's been successful. And yes, it was about making sure that people could come experience an environment where they were, everywhere they looked, they were faced with creativity. And it was all made by independent makers and local designers. But I think for me, it was also really wanting to support those local designers, because there was no way that any of these local makers and designers were really able to get their wares out other than Etsy, online. That was it. Nothing else existed in this city at that time.
And it's great for it to only be one weekend. They don't have to be there every weekend for a flea market or whatever.
Yeah, and because they couldn't. Because the fact is, a lot of these people, this is their side hustle. Doesn't mean, they're very successful side hustles, but they have full-time jobs too.
What were the early times like? So your mom wasn't sure about it, and all your friends were saying it was crazy. How did you launch it?
Oh man, with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. The first show was very interesting. My mom flew out actually from Atlanta, And she was down there in the lobby selling tickets and, trying to help me as best as she could, which was really cool. When I think back, I'm like, that's a great memory that
so sweet.
Her and I shared. We had some tense moments, though, that day. I look back and I'm like, ooh, that was unhealthy.
It's probably second only to organizing a wedding, probably.
Exactly. The first show was hard because, again, no one was doing anything like this. Flea markets existed. Sample sales existed, especially in Los Angeles. So it was like, go to your Ed Hardy sample sale. Those are the only things that existed in this city. And so creating something large scale and new was very hard because even talking to vendors. So, I would find a really great purse designer and I'd approach them and, take so much time in writing this great email and really pitch myself pretty well, I think. And, 5 out of 10 times the people would respond with, I just Googled you. Like, who are you? And I was like, ooh, harsh. But, they were like, are you an event planner? I mean, the biggest response I would always get was like, are you an event planner? Do you have any experience planning events? And, the answer was no. But I do think that I had all of the right experience to make Unique LA successful.
But meanwhile, you were quite well known. Like you're in Canada. You were a bit of a personality. And tell us a little bit about that. That must have been a weird feeling to go from that to
being no one. I mean, I had worked for years as a journalist and creator in Toronto and was on TV. And I was on multiple channels up there. So being there was easy. That life was easy,
Big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
Completely. Small pond, Canada.
But
at some point, you realize, okay, this is weird. I'm at the top of my game and I'm only in my 20s. Where do I go? And so obviously you move down to America, which is what I did. But it was actually a very good experience to start over and to start over in such a humbling way where people were like, first of all, I don't know who you are. Second of all, you don't have what it takes to do this. Third, you're crazy. Like anything, like everything that you can think of that could be said to someone to like discourage them, like it was said to me. But I think that's what entrepreneurs are really good at doing, which is like, actually, I don't really care. I'm going to keep going.
It's the gauntlet to make sure that you're ready for it, I guess.
Yeah. So it was a good experience. It was a good experience. And I think any successful entrepreneur or maker or creator that I know, they've gone through that same thing where other people do not understand what they are trying to do. And then years later, they're all like, why did I not come up with that?
I had that idea too.
Exactly.
I had the idea of rollerblades. I should have been famous, right?
Yeah.
Seems so obvious in retrospect. So how did you capitalize it? Where did the money come from?
So the money to start the event was my retirement savings. Which is probably why my mom thought I was crazy.
You were crazy.
I literally took my entire 401k, and that's what I used to rent the venue.
Wow.
Which was a little ballsy and risky, but I've never been fearful. It's something like I'm very thankful actually that I do not have that quality. If anything, I'm a little too fearless sometimes.
Yeah. What have you done that because you were fearless?
I mean, we probably shouldn't talk about all of that stuff.
I think we should.
Oh, yeah. No. See, the thing that just sparked in my head was, your parents were listening to this.
You don't have to tell them.
Oh, they're on Instagram.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My grandparents, like...
Instagram's over now. Once your parents are on.
Yeah, no, they know all. Trust me. Yeah, no, I'm definitely fearless, but I think that's a good thing. But the way I started it was using my savings. And then because I was a journalist, I have to say, the thing that you are taught in journalism school the most is research. And so I was very good at researching. So before I started the show, I looked at any competition that I could find around the world and tried to see what they were doing if it was working, if it wasn't working, what they were doing that was good, what I could improve upon. And I looked at pricing structures of trade shows, which was the only thing similar to Unique LA at the time. We're not a trade show. We're a public shopping event. But so I really did my research and knew that I needed to charge the participants a certain amount and that I also needed to charge the shoppers. And it was a little scary because at that time, again, not the greatest economy, and people were really into Target. That was when Target was like, everyone was calling it Target. It was very hip and cool. And so the idea of shopping at big box stores was really popular. But I charged an entrance fee and I put it out there on the website. And I think I did a good job at communicating why. And it was really because, you know, I wanted to support the community and also support myself and those helping me to produce this event. And I wanted to make sure it was sustainable. And so that's what I really did, was try to come up with a structure where I could actually make money, which meant this wasn't a one-time event. It was something that was going to last for a while and make a mark on the community. And
that is a hard decision, you know, to figure out the whole pricing structure. But I also could see the argument that, well, look at this vendor. Every single person who came in the door has an intention to buy because they paid. Well, it's a nominal fee, but it's like $20 or $30?
No. It started as 10.
Okay.
Since 2008. And just this year, we raised it to 15.
Oh, okay.
So after 8 years, because I hired a COO, and she analyzed everything. And she was like, why haven't you raised the price in 8 years? I was like, well, because the shoppers, I want to make sure it's accessible. But she had a really good point, which was like, well, but you've grown and you have an office and you have staff, and the staff, you know, everyone's interested in healthcare and benefits. And there are values that I attribute to the company. And I've just been taking less and less. And so she was like, no, that actually doesn't make sense. Everyone here can have all of those things. And it means you have to raise the price a little bit.
Well, there you go. I mean, and I think the people value what they pay for.
Yeah, completely. There was definitely some strategy in when you pay an entrance fee, you are more dedicated. And so you're going to search out that item.
You need to make it worthwhile.
Yeah. You want to buy something. And if you pay an entrance fee and you leave and you haven't bought anything, you always kind of feel kind of like, I just wasted my day.
Yeah.
So people come to Unique LA, they pay the entrance fee, and they shop, which is great. Yeah.
What's your favorite vendor? You must have some interesting characters.
Yes.
You don't have to name names.
We have lots of interesting characters.
Tell us.
I mean, including myself and all of my staff. It's hard to say that I have favorites because they're all like my babies. And when you have 300 vendors, it's weird to say that. But I know every single one. Cool. And I know what they make. But I definitely have some favorite success stories, perhaps, that I could share. There is a candle manufacturer out there. The name of Kristen's company is PF Candle Co. And I love telling people about her and her company because she started at Unique San Francisco and she made safes. And I know, this is amazing. I remember her because these items were so unique. So she took vintage books and she cut the pages out in the middle so that they were safes. So you could hide like your cash and put it on the bookshelf, and you'd know that that's where your valuables were. I just thought that was such a cool product, and it was they were so cool. She's kept one or two. So she started at Unique SF selling these really cool safes, and she had some other items like some jewelry, and she was maybe starting to hand pour candles at that point. And then she started doing Unique LA, and that's when her then boyfriend, now husband, kind of said to her, you know, these safes are really great, but they're not scalable. You know, you're hand carving them. Like, this is not going to work. But they loved the candles. And so I watched over years, Kristen change her product and her aesthetic and put everything she had into the candles. So she stopped selling all the other stuff, just concentrated on the candles. And now, you know, she's a giant factory. She's got over 25 full-time employees.
Oh, my God.
25 full-time employees.
That's incredible.
That's amazing. And they're shipping out, I think it's something like 3,000 to 5,000 candles a week.
Wow.
And I just love that story because like I saw her when she was
really
just
cool.
a kid.
Well, and you can use the market. She's probably used the market to test out her product, right?
Completely.
And then,
Completely. And I love hearing her talk about Unique LA too, just because, she was able to connect with consumers, which is super important, and talk about her brand directly. And so that helped her build a serious fan base. And when you have fans out there who are going to stores and like, have you heard of PF Candle Co.? Or when they see them in stores, they definitely buy them. I mean, that just helps grow your company. So
cool.
Yeah.
What was the toughest time you had? Craziest story.
There's not so many crazy stories when it comes to the actual event. It's a pretty tightly run and really positive experience every single time. But I would say the toughest thing that I've had to deal with is finding and learning how to keep great people. I think that when you are a creative and you're an entrepreneur, you've got great ideas and you're probably pretty good at executing them, but you don't go into it thinking, I'm going to be a boss of many other people who are going to rely on me for their livelihoods. Mm-hmm. And, it's not like, I didn't go to business school. I don't know how many other entrepreneurs have. Most of the ones I know didn't. Mm-hmm. I don't know if in business school they teach you the art of being a boss, but it's just learning. Mm-hmm. And so those have been the toughest times for me when people who you really love and care about leave the company just because of life changes, like becoming a mom, things like that. But it's hard because then you're saying goodbye to someone who has become part of your family and you're having to find someone else. Mm-hmm. Those are the tough times, actually. It's not the money stuff. This sounds crazy to say. It's not the money stuff or anything else. It's actually the people stuff. Do
you remember a specific example that was just really tough?
They're all tough. Every single time you hire someone, and because you're also trusting them, you're putting your brand into their hands. So I think every time you hire someone, you're stepping out onto the high board, And then when every single time they leave, it's tough for me. I'm also a Pisces, so I'm super emotional. Like I'm definitely a dreamer. And so I think I'm just kind of sometimes, who knows if it's a Pisces thing or not, but I'm emotional. And so I think sometimes I try to be too tough.
That's so funny. What did the vendors do wrong? If you were to advise someone who is an entrepreneur who wants to sell, what are the top 3-4 things you would tell them?
I've seen them all. I think the number one thing is putting all of your eggs in one basket. I think that if you are creating a product and you're going to a trade show or you're vending at Unique LA or you're starting off and doing an online store, you can't think that this is going to be the thing that makes my business. I'm going to put everything I have into just this one thing and then get frustrated or mad or blame other people when it doesn't happen. You have to do lots of things. You have to put everything into everything. One of the key things I've always seen a difference in just in attitudes when people show up and they set their space up and they're excited and they're really positive and they're not so serious like I have to make $5,000 today or then I'm not going to be happy. You're already setting expectations. And so I think like just not setting expectations or putting all of your eggs in one basket, which is, I guess, something that my grandmother used to say to me all the time, and it just sticks in my head.
It's funny, though, because I always say, like, you have to have goals in your business, right? And
you do. Yeah. Completely. And so you're very right. It's smart for people to say and to know what those are. And I guess my point is that I don't think they should always be related to the bottom line and to dollars made. I think that when you're doing something like Unique LA or Renegade Craft Fair or any of the other public shopping events, you have to also consider the amount of PR and exposure that you're getting in a very short period of time. You have to consider the social media opportunities that may come. And you also have to consider that you should be using it as a marketing vehicle and tool, which is what Kristen did at PF Candle Co. So yeah, I mean, you are going to know what your most popular scents are going to be by selling them at something like Unique LA. And then you can probably realize, okay, we literally sold 0 of these 2 options. We might want to test online and see if that same thing. And if it is, let's get rid of them.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like it's about experimentation and killing really quickly, right? Like,
Yes.
just, this is not working, and don't fall in love with something
Yeah.
too readily.
And I mean, yeah, getting back to your question of like, you know, things not to do or things to kind of remember and think about. Ellen from Headley and Bennett is a great example of someone who is so extremely positive that it almost tires me.
We had her on the podcast. She was the last episode of season 1. She's awesome.
She's amazing. So she was a vendor years ago, and I got to know her really well then. I think she's a great example of what to do. And I use her as an example because I don't know how many manufacturers and makers are aware of themselves the way she is. She's just always positive, always energetic, and she sees every single person that walks by her table or booth as an opportunity. So she's going to do whatever she has to do to get someone into her booth, even if it's literally taking an apron, walking up to them and putting it around for them to try it on. You know, like she is just outgoing and a go-getter. And when you make a product and you're creative and you're an artist, that's one thing. When you decide to sell that product, you have to be a salesman. And so I think the thing not to do is to sell your, you know, do something like Unique LA and sit there and not sell. So if you set up a beautiful space and a beautiful booth, but you're sitting behind the table and you're looking at your iPad or you're reading a book. We've walked around sometimes and we've seen people reading books, and my heart breaks for them. But at the end of the day, you have to have already decided that you're going to give it your all. And if it's a little slow, or if people don't seem to be interacting with you or coming into your booth, you can't let that get you down. You actually have to just realize, like, what am I doing? How can I improve? Let me come out from this table and stand and interact with people and say hi to people and make eye contact with them. And
So don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yep.
Use it as an experimentation marketing tool. Be super positive and proactive.
Very proactive.
Anything else?
Very proactive. And I think the other thing is just make a great product that you're proud of and tell your story.
How do you pick the vendors? Because you get more
it's
applications
heartbreaking.
now, right? You get 600 or so applications.
Yeah.
for-
So people apply online, and we can only accept about 300. Depending on if people are sharing booths or not, we can accept 350 vendors, and much more than that apply. And so we really have to curate it down, which is a very good thing. It's a great problem to have. But at times it is heartbreaking because there's so much great talent out there, and you just want to support them all.
Do you kick the book readers out for next time?
Yeah, my event producers definitely keep notes on things like that. I mean, we want great energy and we want great products and great people. But at the end of the day, it's very much about community. And so, yeah, we're definitely paying attention to who's positive and who is talking to their neighbors and who's having fun and who is interacting not just with the shoppers because they're shoppers and will buy products, but helping and interacting with fellow vendors. Like, that's actually really important to me. I really don't want to support people who make it all about them. Unique LA is so much more than just shopping. It really is about community. And so if you don't understand that, it shows. And my team is really great, and I trust them with their decisions and their feedback when they walk around.
You're listening to The Art of Manufacturing. Join the conversation on social at We Make It in LA and our Facebook group, makeitinla.org/community. We'll be right back after this break. This episode is supported by CodiPie, a company that will work with you to turbocharge your awesome idea into an awesome software product or website. I'm a big fan because not only has their team helped the art of manufacturing, they support homeless youth and people with mental health challenges with both code and a safe space to learn. For a free consultation, email david@codipie.com and refer to the art of manufacturing, or visit makeitinla.org/pie. We're speaking with Sonja Rasula, the CEO of the Unique Empire. She's sharing her thoughts about the future of retail and how to use social media and technology to build a relationship with your customer.
It's kind of an exciting time for retail, and I think for people who manufacture stuff and sell stuff, it's also a scary time. If you're a retailer, as in a brick and mortar store, you're faced with a lot of challenges because there's online. Makers and producers of products are now selling direct to consumer. And that's not anything new, but I think that the access and the speed in which people who make products can sell direct to consumer is increasing. There are apps where you can literally just take a photo of something and zap it up into the interwebs, and within minutes sell something. So I think that brick and mortar stores are facing an interesting time period in retail. And if you're a manufacturer of products, I think it's a really exciting time to be in retail and selling because, again, you've got so many more ways to get your product out there and sell and really make a profit.
You've laid out in the past specific top-line ways that things are changing, and I'm just curious, what can entrepreneurs and manufacturers do to harness these trends?
Yeah, I think a lot of the ways that manufacturers can really push their businesses and thrive is kind of the stuff that I call the simple stuff, which is thinking about their customers. Again, you're in the thick of things when you're creating a product and selling it and thinking of everything that needs to take part in that. But if you think about your customers, so where are your customers? How can you reach them better? How can you speak to them better? How can you involve them and actually have a conversation with them? Because of all of those things kind of help create loyalty. And having brand loyalty is everything, as I'm sure many of your guests have talked about.
What are some of your favorite tools that are out there that maybe companies might not even be aware of?
So one great example that I love talking about is Everlane, which is a company that manufactures clothing and apparel and accessories. They're a direct-to-consumer brand, so they've taken out the middleman, and they tell their story really well, but what they do is utilize technology in ways that most companies aren't. So they're on Snapchat. Mm-hmm. Great. Everyone knows that they probably need to be on Snapchat, but they don't understand why. Mm-hmm. This example will help kind of give listeners an idea of how people are being creative and innovative. So Everlane uses their Snapchat to release new products. And so what they do is they'll release new products and then have customers screenshot the product. So let's say they release a purse and it's available in tan, black, and red leather. They tell their users that they can screenshot it, circle it, and then email that photo to order the new purse. Now, to you and I, this sounds really cumbersome and crazy. I personally would never do that. To a certain audience, aka millennials and people who have grown up with devices, that's how they shop. So paying attention to some of these examples of how retailers and manufacturers use Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook to actually sell product is pretty interesting to me. Another really great example of utilizing technology is to use beacons. And if you have a brick and mortar, for instance, and you know that someone who has downloaded your app and is a customer of yours is nearby, what you do is you send them a notification. So whether it's about new product that has come in or it's a discount or a deal, come in today, 25% off. That is how you can utilize GPS and beacons to help get customers in the store.
Kind of sounds creepy, though. And I don't know that I would actually download your app if I knew that you'd be tracking me like that.
Yeah, again, I don't want to give our age away, but to a whole generation of people, they love that. That to them is interaction, and that to them is like the millennials essentially do not see marketing as marketing. Mm-hmm. They're having a conversation with a brand. Mm-hmm. And that's very different probably from how you and I see it. I think not enough people understand that social media and websites, YouTube, like all the different ways that you can interact with your community, that it's actually an interaction and a conversation. I think a lot of people just speak to their communities, but they don't actually interact with them and invite their communities to give feedback and take part. And I think that when you do that, you're golden. So that's when you've really kind of done a good job.
What are some examples of that specifically?
Tom's comes to mind. Mm-hmm. And again, Everlane is so good at interacting with their communities. So whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook, they're not just putting content out there. So they're not just like a speaker box, like, oh, we've got new product today. Tomorrow we're doing a discount. Oh, look at our beautiful office in San Francisco. They are really good at involving their community. And that's what you have to do. So every Tuesday, I think they answer questions. So, they're asking for feedback, and they're asking for questions and being very candid and open and transparent with their answers. And I think that's great. So it's not just about talking to their community, but really involving them. Mm-hmm. For young kids out there, this is what's exciting about community, because you could live in the middle of nowhere. But if you have access to the internet, or you have a phone, you have a smartphone, you have access to these larger communities that aren't available to you in a small town, in the middle of Nebraska. Mm-hmm. But you can interact with a brand that you really, really like, that you've fallen in love with, and you can ask them questions about, if you're a budding fashion designer, you can actually ask companies like Everlane and Tom's and a lot of these other companies that are just really good with like paying attention to their customers and actually involving them. And that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Compare what to do with what not to do in a interaction online, because you hear about that, right? Like it's an interaction, it's a conversation, but specifically what would be a bad tweet or a bad series of tweets versus a good series of tweets, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I actually see this stuff all the time, and it makes me cringe, and I want to like reach out to them and be like, I want to help you. Let me help you. And then I realize I can't do everything. Just, come on. So the most interesting thing to me is when people are negative online or on social. So whether it's a company or an individual, and they allow themselves to go on the defensive potentially. Let's say a customer has asked them something or brought something up that maybe is a controversial issue. And instead of answering in a positive manner, they decide to go low. And that always is shocking to me. Or when CEOs, or not even CEOs, anyone in the company decides to go on Twitter or Facebook and respond to something in a way that's like, not good. I just wonder like what went through their heads. Mm-hmm. Before pressing send, they should have just like taken a breath. In my opinion, the customer is always right.
What channels are you on?
I'm not on YouTube, which is kind of embarrassing because I'm a dinosaur. Everyone always asks me, like, who are your favorite YouTube stars? Or, like, what YouTube channels you like? And I'm like, oh,
but I mean, in terms of your, also, when you're posting, how do you communicate with your audiences and your community? And how do you pick? Because I think it's overwhelming for entrepreneurs, right? It's like, oh my God, there's Instagram, and now there's Snapchat, and now there's this, and there's that, and wasn't Facebook and Twitter enough,
So I mean, before becoming an entrepreneur, the world that I really, really worked in was online. And so I've always loved innovation and technology. Mm-hmm. It's something that I'm kind of a nerd about. So for me, when I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and then something called Snapchat appears, I'm intrigued. I'm not 100% sold right away, but I'm definitely paying attention to it and, investigating it. I'm a pretty early adopter. And I think most entrepreneurs should try to be early adopters to stuff like that. And sure, like some things don't pan out. 3 months later, it's like, okay, well, I gave it my best and now I'm going to just concentrate on Instagram. But yeah, I mean, you also asked, how I choose, like which ones I choose to be on and how I choose to communicate what I do. I think that for me, I'm a visual being, so I really, really love Instagram. I also think that entrepreneurs should, quite honestly, just look at which one has the most interaction, like which one is having the most impact. And if you don't have a lot of time, which we don't, you probably want to just choose the ones that you are most successful at. I'm terrible at Twitter. Like I'm never on Twitter. It's awful. And I feel guilty about it. But at the same time, like, well, I can only do so much. So I'm going to concentrate on Instagram because I love photography. And it's my way to be a wannabe photographer. And speaking to my audience, I think entrepreneurs should always be honest. And while I just kind of railed against being negative, I think you can be honest and not be negative. You can be very forthright with some days are not as good as others. And you can tell that story and let people know that. Because I think there is also a falsehood on a lot of the social media platforms where it looks like everyone has great lives all the time.
What else? What are some other things that entrepreneurs might want to think about to really be successful in retail and to reach the customer?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One of them is that decisions are definitely emotional. There's it's a fact. So once you know that, you really should think about what makes someone emotional enough to purchase what you're making. Again, just putting yourselves in the customer's shoes and thinking, is my product making them feel beautiful? Is my product making them feel like they're treating themselves to something? Because those are very emotionally driven, makeup, candy. Like these are all things that are like very easy and popular products because they are so emotionally driven. So then you're like, well, how can I make someone be emotional about buying my pillow? And you can. So I think part of that is through storytelling and design. I hate to reference Ellen again, but she's a great friend and a kick-ass entrepreneur. So I don't think that anyone would naturally say, I need to buy a $150 apron. Like on paper, that's not a great decision. Emotionally, she's made everyone want a $150 apron. And I think that's because of storytelling and quality and being able to let the consumer know how something was made. And so if you can insert a sense of pride, then someone will probably be more likely to purchase. So it's just figuring out how you can connect with your customers. So whatever it is that you make, you need to figure out, how can I connect with people on an emotional level? Because people will spend money with me buying my product if they feel attached to me somehow. So is it where you grew up? Is it how you make the item? Is it what you make it with? These are all ways that you can kind of figure out how to connect emotionally with people.
Which is amazing because we talk so much about, how can America compete because of the costs? And of course, sometimes it's actually not more expensive to make it locally. But even if it is, there are ways to be able to make ends meet and be very successful.
Completely. Unique LA and the vendors who sell there completely blast that whole theory of, Americans want more. And it's like, no, actually, they don't want more. They actually want products that they love and that they feel really good about. And if you can tell them that story, they will buy from you. Absolutely. They will spend, I see it all the time. They will spend 3 times as much to buy an apparel item at Unique LA than going to a big box store.
Wow. 3 times?
Yeah, I mean, because you can go to X big box store and buy a T-shirt for $9.99, and you can buy one at Unique LA for $40 that's been manufactured in LA, printed in LA, sewn in LA. And so once you tell those stories and educate the consumer on what it is that you're selling and how you've done it, you connect with them. And then they realize, yeah, I don't need 5 $9.99 shirts. I need one really good one that I'm going to love and feel really good about every time I wear it.
Tell me more about how, so it's not just Unique LA anymore, it's the Unique Empire. How has it evolved and how are you scaling? And what have you learned along the way?
Everything.
Well, that's a big question. But
yeah,
I mean, how have you scaled?
So Unique LA started because I wanted to support entrepreneurs and small businesses and also help shoppers shop everything that they could possibly ever want in one space. After doing that for a few years, it became really obvious that the small business owners really needed help and advice and a community, not just, hanging out for 2 days selling, where you can make friendships and network with other vendors, but they really needed a community that they could sit down and learn from and talk with. And so I decided to start Camp, which is a business conference that takes place in Big Bear, California. So I kind of like to say it's the business conference for people who hate business conferences. And much like summer camp, everyone bunks together. And we're up there. We take everyone's phones.
Ooh, so that's going to be tough.
It's tough and also amazing. Truly amazing. On the last day when we give everyone their phones back, no one wants to turn the phones on. Like that is how powerful.
I mean, I wouldn't want to touch it after 2 days of off.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So I started this business conference, and it's so special and powerful, and it's been really cool to see the friendships and the businesses that have grown from it, which is great. And then right after starting camp, I decided to open a communal office building in downtown Los Angeles because I kind of felt the need. No. yeah, because I'm crazy and felt the need. I mean, all 3 of those businesses came from a lack in the marketplace. There wasn't anything before Unique LA that was like Unique LA. Camp, there wasn't anything like Camp when I started. Now there's some other business conferences that take place in the outdoors that are realizing they want to get out of like the convention center and the hotel ballrooms. And the Unique space is the office building, and there really isn't – I don't think there are that many spaces especially in the arts district of downtown LA. There aren't that many spaces that are friendly and warm and inviting to all types of people, but especially women. And so that was kind of one of the things that I wanted to do. There's a lot of great co-working spaces that are in the city now, but they tend to be tech-driven and for some reason very like male-dominated and also like designed by males. And so, I do what I know. And so I wanted to design an office space that was really based on that idea of community and sharing and being creative with one another. So it's an office building that has 18 offices, and we have a huge kitchen and a huge workspace and a bar and a rooftop. And so, these are great entrepreneurs and small business owners that come in, put their heads down, do all of the heavy lifting in their work, but then they take lunch and they come out and they cook in the kitchen and talk to other people and realize, oh, I've been looking for a lawyer who gets what I do and gets, that I'm creative and don't have income all the time. And so I'd love to work with you. And so we have a lawyer in the building. We have an accountant. We have media companies. So it's a great space for everyone to work in. But quite honestly, I created that space for women.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me about your 16-year-old self and what she would think about you today.
My 16-year-old self had been uprooted from Los Angeles to a very small town in Canada. So I was very angry. And I was probably doing a lot of searching and like trying to figure out where I fit in and what to do. But when I was 16, I was extremely creative. I think we are who we are when we're born. And so I was extremely creative, and I was doing pottery and painting, and I was going home and I was stenciling my walls and like creating anything that I could. I was all about just creating and making and using my hands. But the 16-year-old Sonja thought that she would be a pop star. And I had no doubt, absolutely zero doubt that this would not happen. So I think, it would be funny now that this is what I'm doing. And also so far from, you want to talk about like differences in generations. This is so random that I'm bringing this up, but it's cool to be an entrepreneur now. And it's a trend, potentially. It's a great trend. But when I was in high school, I don't even think the word entrepreneur, I'm really trying to think about whether that was even in my vocabulary, and I don't think it was. I don't even think that word was in my vocabulary in college. So I definitely, being a business owner and like a boss was not on my radar when I was 16 at all. I was definitely a dreamer. It's the Pisces thing. And I was already doing crazy stuff like selling stuff. I mean, I was already, this is actually really funny when I think about it. I was already an entrepreneur then. I was making jewelry and selling it at the flea market in the summer.
Well, there you go.
I mean, I was always hustling. I always had some sort of hustle. And in fact, this is strange, but I threw my prom. In Canada, the drinking age is lower. And so prom, you're actually legally allowed to drink, which means the high schools can't organize it because of the liability.
Oh, interesting.
So I, instead of using like a third party, usually you hire event planners to do that, I was like, wait a minute, no. I'm going to throw prom.
See, you were an event planner.
I was absolutely, yes, I was. Prom, 19, whatever it was. So I was an entrepreneur then, but I didn't know it then, and I didn't know what that was. So yeah, I was doing side hustles all the time in high school, but I really did think that I would be a pop star or on TV or a writer. I mean, my big dream was probably to be like a published author. And I went to journalism school, so learned all about that, and those things could still happen.
We've had several people that went to journalism school that we've had.
Really?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Who?
So,
Ooh, I love
well,
that.
when Green Bar Distillery, Liddy Matthews, and she and her husband both met at USC Annenberg.
That is so cool because it was another editor that pointed this out to me, and I find it so interesting. Another print magazine editor. She analyzed what I do with Unique LA in that what you have to do as an editor is look down at a piece of paper and very easily be able to cut out what doesn't need to be there and figure out how to write a headline that will attract people. She was like, that's still what you do. You curate, you look at all of these people that apply, you choose the ones that you think the shoppers will like and that you think will be successful, and you write the headlines. Like, you're still writing content and figuring out how to attract people through words. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Deep.
But I love that so many journalists
I wouldn't
have
say so
become
many, but
entrepreneurs.
we have, I mean.
Well, a few.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to hold on to this fact.
So I have 3 other questions that I ask everybody, and I'd love to ask you. So what's next? What's going to be the big kind of the next rung? Are you looking at something new?
I maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I might as well tell you about it. I think what's next for me, so we are starting the Unique Conference. And so it will be a conference that takes place during Unique LA, because it only makes sense. We're producing this giant event, and we have all of these great people attending. And so we're going to start educating and bringing that education and inspiration to the same weekends that we do Unique LA. And then the other thing that I'm playing with now, I don't want to say that I'm going to do it for sure, but usually when I have an idea in my head, I just go ahead and do it. So what I've done with the unique space in the building I never thought that it would be as interesting and as successful as it has been. And I think it's opened my eyes. And it took someone else actually opening my own eyes to it. A good friend of mine, Aaron, was talking to me, and he was like, why don't you start opening up more office spaces for women? for women, small business owners and entrepreneurs. And I had never thought about that because, I have 3 businesses and I'm running around like a chicken.
You have so much free time.
Yeah, I'm just relaxing in a hammock, drinking a drink, which is really a goal of mine, actually. Yeah, so I do really like this idea. And I used to be an interior designer. And so it's just exciting to me that, I could replicate what I've done with the Unique Space and do it in cities all over the country where there are these niche markets of creatives and entrepreneurs who are looking for help and looking for a community and a home base, which is exactly what I was looking for. And I would really like to be able to kind of lend my hand in the world of female entrepreneurship because it's hard. It's hard for everyone.
Entrepreneurship's hard.
But ironically, we're recording this on the wage gap day. It's like National Wage Gap Day, which is crazy. And I think about that stuff. And I have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, both male and female. And men just do not face some of the stuff. They may face other stuff that I don't know about. But women face so many more obstacles. And, I don't want to get into it, but it's like creating a space for them where they feel like comfortable and safe and inspired, I think is really important. And so if I can do that, I think that would be really rad.
I see the empire part of your name. What keeps you up at night? Trying to achieve
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well, for a couple reasons. First of all, I'm narcoleptic. Real fact. And so if for those of you out there who don't know what narcolepsy is, it's basically I uncontrollably fall asleep.
Well, I hope that you're still awake now.
I'm still awake now. I'm with you. I'm here. I am actually probably one of the world's best sleepers on earth. So I fall asleep and I'm in REM sleep, which is the really good sleep. It's rapid eye movement. I'm usually in REM sleep within 2 minutes. And it usually takes, the average person like 1 to 2 hours. So when I'm out, like as soon as I hit the pillow, I'm asleep. So I actually don't stay up at night at all. And I've never been much of a worrier.
Amazing.
Yeah. I've got a ton of faults, but one of the great things about me is that I don't worry too much and I'm not scared of much. So,
but if there's one challenge you see facing, the thing that you probably should be worrying about, what do you think that is?
Boy, now you're gonna have me think about all this stuff. Now I'm gonna turn into a worry wart. No, I think for me at this stage in my life, and I've had 3 successful businesses. I've never taken a dollar from anyone else. So I think I've been really fortunate. So for me, it's less about the thing that I would probably worry about has nothing to do with business. And it's probably, am I taking enough time for me? That's probably it.
I could see that.
Yeah. I give myself to a lot of other people because I enjoy it. And I'm probably addicted to it slightly. But I think making sure that I travel around the world more and take time for me, I think that's probably what I would worry about if I allow myself but I don't allow myself the time to worry.
That's
See how that works?
Yeah. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
though. Wow, how do you know, should you be scaling more to be successful or should you be actually giving yourself more? But that's
deep thought.
Can of worms. Finally, what is there like one lesson learned that you wish you had known when you started that you would want to impart on another entrepreneur?
Oh, man, there's so many actually, but the one that I think is the biggest one is the idea that it's what I talked about before. You are going after your dream and you'll probably do everything possible to make it happen, and it's going to happen. And when it does happen, you're going to become a boss. And like everyone throws around the boss word. It's very popular right now. And I'm like, you're not truly a boss unless you actually are like a boss of other people. And when that happens, it's a reality check and a wake-up call because there's so much work that goes into it. And so my advice would probably be that go after everything with all that you've got and just be prepared for the fact that you are going to have people who believe in you and your dream too, and they're going to come on board and they're going to help you. and it's going to be amazing, but you need to learn how to manage a little bit and be, be an adult, those boss things that no one ever likes to talk about, like doing your taxes and figuring out all the legalities of what you're doing. Those are actually really important things. And when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you're an artist or a creative, you are not paying attention to those things. You're like looking at color swatches and, like creating art on Illustrator and designing beautiful websites that will help your business. Like you're doing all the creative things that you love to do, and you're not paying attention to the details, which are being a boss and a good manager and a good business owner. So I would say, just take the time to actually look at those things and actually do those things.
Yeah. It totally resonates. We can drill into that in our next conversation. Anything else that I should have asked you?
I don't know.
That was a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot.
And I appreciate your time. Where can people reach you?
People can go to my website, which is sonjarasula.com. Sonja with a J, which most people are always pronouncing Sonja.
And we'll include that in the show notes too, so people can find it.
Oh, perfect. And then, they can follow me on Instagram, which is, again, just my name, Sonja Rasula. And they can check out all the work that I do, which, they can find through your website.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So many different, what a wide-ranging conversation and just so much wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been so fun. Now I'm even more inspired. I'm like, okay, I'm also going to have a podcast.
Awesome.
It's so
and we'll
fun.
Tune in. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think the 3 most interesting lessons I learned today were, first, Sonja says don't put all your eggs in one basket. And what I think she means is experiment. There are tons of opportunities to test out your ideas on social media, in craft fairs, crowdfunding, or whatever, and so you have no excuse before you invest in mass production. Also, develop a relationship with your customers. Whether it's in person or online, it's about telling an authentic story and giving an opportunity for your customers to tell you theirs. If you do that, they can become incredibly loyal and they'll spend a lot more on your goods than products they don't care about. And finally, it's not enough to develop a good product. Once you launch, you have to dedicate yourself to being a salesperson and a business person. If you're an artist or a creative, this can be especially hard to wrap your head around, and we've seen that in previous episodes. But your success depends on your ability to hustle and to sell and to be a boss. And that's okay. You've already put your heart and soul into it, and so you're going to make it work. You are an entrepreneur. Time to wrap it up for The Art of Manufacturing. Tune in next Thursday when we speak with Professor Emeritus of MIT Rodney Brooks. He's probably best known as the co-founder of iRobot, and he's now bringing humans and automation together as the founder and CTO of Rethink Robotics. That should be an interesting one. Visit makeitinla.org for show notes and to stay in the loop about events, news, and resources. To chat with other like-minded manufacturing entrepreneurs, join our Facebook discussion group at makeitinla.org/community. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on iTunes, Google Play Music, or your favorite player. And if you like the show, do us a big favor and leave us a review. Or send us a message with feedback and ideas on Twitter at WeMakeItInLA. This podcast is produced by At Large and Dangerous in collaboration with the Make It in LA initiative and other partners. A big shout out to Peter Brandenburg, the producer and audio engineer, and our content coordinator, Heidi Carrion. This episode was recorded at The Reef in downtown Los Angeles. Thanks for listening to The Art of Manufacturing. I'm Z Holly, and remember, don't just make it, make it.